Okay, welcome to the Tier 1 Public Safety Firefighter webinar. My name is Corey Cox. I'm part of the education team here at Utah Retirement Systems. And I have here with me Tracy Wilder, one of our retirement planning advisors here at URS. Just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. Just so you're aware, this session is for those in the Tier 1 Public Safety or the Tier 1 Firefighter Retirement System. That includes anyone that was hired prior to July 1st of 2011 as a police officer, correctional officer, firefighter, or other public safety related position. We also want to ensure that you remain engaged in the presentation today, so we have provided a couple of tools for you that will help ensure you can understand the benefits available to you. First of all, on the bottom right-hand corner there, we have attached the files for the Tier 1 Public Safety and the Tier 1 Firefighter System. These are handouts that will be beneficial to you as a reference for your respective system, and we encourage you to download those files so that you can refer to those after the presentation. The T1PS, the Pension Basics T1PS, is for public safety, and the Pension Basics Tier 1 Fire is for firefighters. And we also have our investment options brochure that we'll look at later in the presentation as well there. We'd love your participation throughout the session today. If you have any questions, please be sure to ask those questions in the Q&A section in the right-hand side of your screen. We'll have people here to help answer any of your questions, and they will remain private, so don't feel bad about asking what you may deem as a dumb question. There is no dumb question according to us. We want to make sure you understand your benefits. Also, we'll be asking some questions of our own to make sure you're paying attention. So please participate in these poll questions as they help us gauge who's with us today and also your level of understanding of the concepts that will be discussed. With that being said, let me introduce to you Tracy Wilder. He is one of our the URS retirement planning advisors. He has really an unmatched knowledge of the retirement system. He's been with us for nearly 2 years and has some extensive experience in the financial industry. So without further ado, Tracy, why don't you go ahead and take the reins?
Thank you, Corey. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tracy Wilder, and I am a retirement planning advisor in the education group with Utah Retirement Systems. I'm happy to be here with all of you this morning. We're going to spend about an hour this morning going over the Tier 1 Public Safety Firefighter Pension System and also the investment plans and investment options that are available to you through Utah Retirement Systems. To get things started, I'm going to put up a poll question here, and if you just take a minute to answer that, want to know how many years of service do you have in the URS system? Let's take just a minute and answer that for me, please. All right, excellent. So just the results here, we've got a real spread, but looks like the majority of our folks have more than 15 years in the system, which may explain your interest in today's presentation. Thank you for responding to that. Want to post another poll question. What is your retirement goal? When you're thinking about retirement and preparing for retirement, it's important to have, just like in any other area of life, it's important to have a goal in mind. It's just like taking a trip, right? If you want to take a trip, you got to know where you're going before you take off. Otherwise, you can waste a lot of time taking the wrong roads. So take just a minute to answer that. Thanks so much. So our options, as you can see, were volunteer, spend time with family, travel, continue working, and other. And the vast majority of you are interested in doing all of the above. That's pretty consistent with all of our retirees. So thank you so much for spending a minute answering that question for us. So it doesn't matter what your goal is, whether you want to travel, spend time with family, or volunteer. your ability to be successful or to achieve that goal depends on your level of preparation for retirement. Hopefully, this presentation this morning will help you both to understand how your benefits work and then understand or begin to help you to figure out your preparedness for retirement. So most of us in the UR system have three primary sources of retirement income. We have the pension, of course, which we're going to talk about this morning. We have Social Security, and then we have our individual savings accounts. Now, not all of us will have Social Security. Some of us may work for a Social Security exempt organization, uh, and that may be our sole employer, in which case we wouldn't have Social Security, or we may have split time with agencies that did contribute to Social Security and those that didn't. And of course, that can affect your Social Security payout. We've put the website location for the Social Security website. It's ssa.gov. I encourage you to all visit that. You can create a login, a username and password, and you can actually see your estimated benefit. And then, of course, the other area that hopefully we will have when we reach retirement is the income from our individual savings plans, the retirement savings plans, whether they're offered through URS or whether they're offered through another provider. While I'm on that topic, let me just say, while we offer 4 different retirement savings plans, not all of those may be available to you. And for some of you, your employers may use someone entirely different than URS for those benefits. Um, Nevertheless, and hopefully, regardless of this, who's administering those benefits for you, you're taking advantage of it because those contributions, the money in those accounts, are going to be the things that can, in many cases, be the difference between, having a difficult retirement or at least financially or being able to enjoy retirement with more financial security. So let's get right to it and let's spend some time talking about the pension. First question, another poll question here. What is a pension? Take a minute. Give me your answers there. Again, remember Corey told you that your answers are completely, we have no idea who's responding. So we're not going to call anybody out for being incorrect. Okay, awesome. So everybody picked a lifetime monthly benefit based on your years of service and average salary. And unfortunately, you're all incorrect. No, just kidding. You're all absolutely correct. That is the correct response. So great. You have a good understanding of the pension going into it. So let's jump into how we calculate the pension. Pension is a defined benefit. And the reason it's a defined benefit is because the payout is based on a formula. And here's the formula for you guys and gals. Years of service, for every year of service up to 20 years, you're going to get 2.5%. And then we multiply that number by the average of your 3 highest years' salary. For your years of service after 20 years, you're going to get 2 years, or 2%, excuse me. And then again, we multiply that number by the average of your 3 highest years. Now, with the years of, with the average 3 highest years, we're just going to look at your employment with that URS eligible employer and look for your 3 highest years. Doesn't have to be your last 3, doesn't have to be a consecutive 3. So that's how the pension benefit is calculated. That is the formula. Here's a quick example. So we have somebody who has, what do we say, 25 years of service. So as you can see, for the first 20 years, they're getting 2.5%, which equals 50%. For those next 5 years, those 5 years after the 20 years, they're getting 2% for every year. So that will be 10%. We add those together. This individual's pension will replace 60% of the average of their 3 highest years. And we just call that your final average salary. So for this individual, their annual benefit is going to be $24,000 a year or $2,000 a month. not too bad when you consider that this benefit for most of you is funded 100% by your employer. Let's talk eligibility. When can you start to take advantage of this benefit? And in order to receive that pension, these are the requirements. You either have to be 65 and have at least 4 years of service, you have to be 60 with at least 10 years of service, or you're eligible to receive the pension at any age with 20 years of service. So looking at the formula earlier, an individual 20 years of service would retire with a pension that would replace 50% of their final average salary. And you can retire at that point at any age as long as you have that. Now, it's, for example, let's say you started later, or for some reason you're forced out of work before you wanted to. You don't have, maybe you only have 4 years. Well, what you do in that case is you just wait until you were 65 and then you'd give us a call. So it's not necessary for you to work up to that age in order to be eligible. You can get those years early in your career and then just wait and call us when you hit 65. All right, now these are the payout options for public safety. Okay, this is just for those that are in the public safety system. And basically, you have two payout options. The default or the standard is the payout option that provides your surviving spouse with 65% of your benefit after you pass away. So in this example, we've got somebody who, these numbers are based on somebody with a final average salary of $40,000 a year. They've got 25 years of service. They're age 62 and their spouse is age 60. The member's benefit is $2,000 a month. When the member dies, the spouse, whoever that member is married to at the time of their death, that spouse will continue to receive 65% of the benefit, or $1,300. The other option that you can elect at the time of retirement is the 75% spouse benefit option. If you choose that option, you'll notice that there's a reduction in the member benefit. And the surviving spouse would receive 75% of that reduced benefit. Now, within both of those payout options, you also have an option to take what we call a partial lump sum. It's the PLSO. The PLSOs are based on 12 months of the basic benefit or 24 months of the basic benefit. So for an individual who has a standard benefit of $2,000 a month or a basic benefit of $2,000 a month, they get $24,000 with the 12-month PLSO or $48,000 with the 24-month PLSO. If you choose the PLSO, it permanently reduces your monthly pension benefit, and consequently also reduces the pension benefit available to your surviving spouse. And again, this is this person that you were married to at the time of your death. This is a little unique. In the other Tier 1 public employee systems, it's based on their spouse at the time of retirement. But for the police and firefighters, it's based on the spouse at the time of death. Now let's look at the firefighters option. You don't have an option. This is your payout. So you're going to receive the basic, again, the member receives the basic benefit, whatever theirs is calculated to be, and the spouse is going to receive 75% of that basic benefit upon the member's death. Firefighters also have the PLSO options, and you can see the corresponding reductions. Now those reductions are calculated based on the member's age and the spouse's age. So don't draw any conclusions here by saying, oh, well, if my basic benefit's around $2,000 a month, my reduction would be about $134 a month if I take the PLSO. It depends on your spouse's date of birth. I understand our record is we paid out on a pension over 60 years for a member. The member was approximately 60 when they retired. They collected the pension for 20 years. They happened to be married when they were 60, their spouse was 20. So when the member died, the spouse was 40, and the spouse then received the pension for 40 years. So we paid out that pension over 60 years of both the member and the spouse's lives. All right. After you start collecting that pension, you're going to receive a cost of living adjustment or a COLA. You're going to receive this every year. In public safety, the COLA, the basic COLA is capped at 2.5%. Many employers, though, are able to opt for a 4% COLA, and in fact, many have. And you can check with your employer on that if you have a question, or you can call us and call our customer service line, and they can look that up for you to see if you're in the 2.5 or 4%. But that's a cap, again, an annual cap on the cost of living adjustment. And then for firefighters, your cost of living adjustment is 4% annual, or capped at 4%. The COLA is added to your benefit annually on the anniversary of your retirement date. So if you retire in June, you'll see that COLA every June. And the way we calculate the COLA is we use a federal measure of inflation called the Consumer Price Index. And whatever the federal that measure of inflation is for that year, that's the cost of living adjustment you'll receive in the upcoming year. So that is the COLA, or cost of living adjustment. Now, it's possible for you to purchase service credit. This is a way for you to increase your service years. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. The first is if you worked for a URS eligible employer in the past, left, and when you left, you cashed out the benefit, then you can repurchase, or you forfeited those years, you can repurchase those years. So if you spent a couple of years early on in your career in another agency, left, didn't think you were ever coming back, and you cashed out that benefit, you can purchase those years back. You can also purchase years of service you have in another state system or in the federal system. So if you worked, if you have a retirement benefit in another state, Arizona, California, whatever, and you want to purchase those years, you forfeit those years in that system, and then you're eligible to purchase those in the URS system. And there's actually a calculator that you can use on our website that will allow you to calculate the approximate cost of purchasing those years of service. One note on the federal purchasing years in the federal system. While for most of you, you have to forfeit those years in that system, if you have time in the military, you can actually keep those years in that service in the military and purchase those in URS. Another way that you can purchase service credit, and unfortunately this isn't, you folks aren't eligible for this, but I'm going to address it simply because you may have questions about it. Maybe some of you have heard about purchasing future service credit, where you can purchase up to 5 years of service credit years that you haven't actually worked. Currently, that is not available to police or firefighters, so you cannot purchase future service credit. So if you're curious about your pension benefit and you want to run an estimate, you can go to our website, urs.org, and you'll see a link, a calculator link. If you click on that, you'll see this link, Retirement Benefit Estimate Calculator. You'll also notice right below there where it says Service Purchase Estimate Calculator. That's the calculator you would use if you want to calculate the cost to purchase years of service you had in another system. But anyway, if you want to estimate your pension benefit, click on that Retirement Benefit Estimate Calculator, and it'll pull up a sheet where you need to enter some data, some information. Be sure that you enter the data that's requested. And then also, because we have multiple pension systems, I believe it's the second line down on that calculator, you're able to choose your pension system. The default is the Tier 1 non-contributory system because that's where most of our members are. Be sure to change that to your pension system. So Tier 1 public safety or Tier 1 firefighter. Make sure you change that, otherwise your benefit just won't be accurate. All right, so let's talk about the active member death benefits. And these are a little bit complicated because they depend on a couple of different factors. The first is whether you're Division A or Division B. Now, Division A is if you have an employer, if at the time of death you're with an employer that contributes to Social Security. If at the time of your death you're with an employer that does not contribute to Social Security, then you're in Division B. And then the benefits depend on whether your duty or death, excuse me, is due to a line of duty or not in line of duty. And then, of course, the benefits are different whether you're in public safety or whether you're in firefighter. I'm not because of the number of different variables there. Um, Division A, Division B, public safety versus firefighter, excuse me, or whether the death's line of duty or not in the line of duty. I'm not going to spend a lot of time over these benefits. I'd encourage you to download the pension basics brochure for your system, and these benefits appear on the back of that handout. So look there, and then if you have any questions, you can always call us. We have customer service folks who are available 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Their telephone numbers are on the back of the brochures. Give us a call if you have questions about those benefits, maybe how they're interpreted, how they're applied, and we can give you more specific details on that. So this slide shows those active member benefits for public safety who are in Division B. The previous slide, let me go back to that. You can see that was public safety Division A. So we've got A and B, and then here are the death benefits for firefighters in Division A, both line of duty and not in line of duty. And those who are in Division B, line of duty versus not line of duty. I apologize that I'm kind of going through those slides fast, but again, just download the brochures or go to the website, download the brochures, and those benefits are detailed on the back of those brochures. So once you've done that, the big question is your pension going to be high enough, right? You heard me mention before that a member who retires with 20 years of service in the firefighter or public safety system is going to have a pension that's going to replace up to 50% of their income. So let's take a poll question. Do you think your pension is going to be enough? Take a minute and answer that. Okay, so the majority of you have responded no. And that's okay. I wouldn't expect the pension for the majority for the pension standing alone to be enough. I know for myself, I would really hate to try and live off of just 50% of my current income. So yeah, 50% would be very tough to live on. We've got another poll question. Do we have another poll question? Oh, sorry, I apologize. Not a poll question for this one. It's for a later slide. All right, so that's the pension. I hope that explained the benefit adequately for you. I hope you feel comfortable with that. How the pension works. Remember, it's formula driven. There are age and years of service requirements for eligibility. There's the cost of living adjustments, and that's the pension benefit. It's really not very complicated, pretty straightforward. All right, so let's spend some time talking about the individual savings plans. And in my opinion, these are extremely important. I think as individuals with the pension, we have a tendency, or it's my experience as I meet with members, that we have a tendency to maybe ignore this benefit a little bit. For many of our members, I sit down and do individual retirement planning sessions with a lot of our members, and I can tell you that a lot of them, they'll have a lot of years of service, and so they look at their pension and they look at Social Security and they say, wow, between those two, I can replace anywhere from, depending on their years of service, 70 to 100% of my salary. And so they don't save in individual savings plans. And of course, the problem with that is It's important to have cash or savings in retirement, just like it's been during our working years. Remember, Social Security and the pension are fixed income. Uh, if you have an unexpected expense come up in a month, good luck calling URS or Social Security and asking to receive, you know, 3 months of your pension payment in a lump sum. It just doesn't happen. So these individual savings plans will provide you with a lump sum of cash. It'll help get you through emergencies. They will supplement your income. This is the income that many of us rely on for those extras. We look at our fixed income as taking care of our basic needs, our fixed costs. And then we look at the income from our retirement savings plans as providing us with that extra income that lets us maybe travel or do some of those things that we would like to do during retirement. All right, so here's a graph that shows the different values in an individual's savings account based on decisions that they make. Each one of these assumes, well, except for the one in green, assumes that the individual is saving 15% of their salary every year. So annually, they're saving 15% of their salary. Julie there with next to the red dot, you can see she starts at age 25. She saves 15% of her salary from 25 to 65. Her investments return on average she has a 6.5% return. And you can see, so her total contributions over those years are $282,000, but her balance has grown to be approximately 1.1 million. Then we can look at Sally. Sally waits until she's 35 to start saving. Everything else is the same. She's saving 15% a year. She averages a 6.5% annual return on her investments. You'll see that her total contribution is $232,000, just $50,000 less than Julie, but you can see the effect that waiting 10 years has on her total balance. Her balance is a little over $633,000, just about half of Julie's, and that's for Sally. For Sally, that's the consequence of rather than starting at 25, waiting until age 35. Now let's take a look at Joe. Joe starts at 25. He, like Julie, he starts at 25. He saves through 65. But Joe is a more conservative investor, and Joe's investments have an average annualized return of 2.5%, 4% less than Sally or Julie. His contributions are the same as Julie, $282,000, but you can see the effect that lower annual rate of return has on his balance. He's looking at around $450,000. And then finally, we've got Linda. Now, Linda, she started a little bit later in life, and so rather than saving just 15% of her salary, she's actually saving 20% of her salary. She's doing this between the ages of 45 and 65, so over 20 years. She's getting the higher rate of return, similar to Julie and Sally, 6.5%. You can see her contribution is a little bit around $230,000, but she's still been, even though she started later in life, and yes, she was required to contribute more, you can still see that she's been able to amass a little over $443,000. So this graph helps to demonstrate the effect of waiting to save, getting lower rates of return, or waiting longer in life. So these are all important considerations for each of us. This chart shows the effect. This is the time value of money. This graph shows the effect of your savings compounding over a year. You can see that in the early years, as you open up that retirement savings account and you start to save, your contributions are essentially the increase in value in the savings plan. However, there's a point in time, and it's further out, where the growth in the account actually starts to exceed your contributions. And at that point, you start to get onto this steeper part of that curve. And then finally, as you're further out, this, it can take 30 to 35 years for this to happen, but you'll enter a phase of rapid growth. And during this rapid growth, the growth in your account will be substantially more than the contributions you make. And so this is the effect of starting earlier in life. The earlier you start, the further out on that graph you are with your savings, and the more rapid growth you'll see. If for those of us who wait a little bit later in life to get started, we may not have enough time in our lifespan or based on our retirement plans before we'll actually enter that rapid growth curve. All right, so let's talk about the retirement savings plans. And URS offers four: a 401k, a 457, a traditional IRA, and a Roth IRA. And let me repeat that while these all are available through URS, not all of your employers may make all of these plans available to their employees. Some may only offer a couple of the plans. And then there are some of you where your employers don't even offer the URS savings plans. They offer them through another administrator. But the principles, regardless, the principles here that we're going to discuss apply to all of you, regardless of where your savings plans, who administers those plans. So let's go over some of the highlights of these four different savings plans. Now, this slide is a snapshot of one of the pages in that investment options brochure, and you can download that by clicking on the investment options link there on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, or by going to the website. Many of your employers may have copies of these. And of course, we have copies of them here in our offices in Salt Lake. So let's start with the 401k and the 457. And the reason I start with those are different than the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA in a couple of respects. First, these are linked with your employer. So what that means is the only way you can contribute to the 401k or the 457 is through payroll deduction. So that your contributions have to come out of your paycheck. With the 401k and the 457, it's not possible for you to send us a check and say, hey, I just, I have an extra $1,000. Will you please put this in my 401k or 457? We wouldn't be able to do that for you. Both of these plans are tax deferred. And what that means is your contributions are not taxed. They come out before your taxes are calculated. So you pay the taxes when you take the distributions later in life. Because the contributions are not taxed, or before they come out, before your taxes are calculated, these tax deferred accounts lower your tax liability in the year that you make them. For example, somebody who makes $40,000 a year puts 10% of their income into a tax deferred account. That $4,000 of contributions will come out before the taxes are calculated. So at the end of the year, their tax liability will be based on $36,000 a year. So this can be helpful for some of you who are maybe trying to control your tax liability. Both of these plans have, I guess we'll cover this in another slide. Do we have another slide that covers contributions? Okay. So we have another slide that covers contributions, and I'll cover that in a second. So let's look at rules governing withdrawals. And the 401k and the 457 have different rules governing withdrawals. Now, as long as you remain employed with the employer who sponsors the 401k or 457, you cannot withdraw money from a 401k until you hit 59 and a half. And with a 457, you cannot withdraw funds until you hit 70 and a half. Now, if you separate from employment from that employer that is sponsoring that benefit, then with the 401k, you can pull funds out at any time. However, if you pull them out before age 59 and a half, you're going to pay a 10% penalty. For those of you who have a 457, once you separate from that employer, you are eligible to take distributions without any penalty, regardless of your age. So if I was planning on working later in years and working for an employer that sponsors a 401k, I'm probably going to make, and I'm interested in a tax deferred plan, I'm probably going to make contributions to a 401k. Because even if I continue to work, I can start accessing those funds at 59 and a half. With the 457, this I would recommend for people who are planning on retiring before age 59 and a half. Because you can put that money in there, you can separate from employment, and regardless of your age, you can start taking distributions. Now, understand you're always going to pay taxes when you take the distributions, but you're going to avoid that 10% penalty. Now, before that, you'll see that there's an exception for the 401k. You can actually start taking distributions without the 10% penalty as long as you work into the calendar year that you turn age 55. But again, that's you work until the calendar year that you turn 55 and then you retire or separate from employment, then you're eligible. So let's talk about the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. Now, the traditional IRA is tax deferred, just like the 401k and the 457. That means your contributions are tax free. You pay taxes when you take the money out. With the Roth IRA, this is not a tax deferred plan. You can actually see that a Roth IRA provides you with tax free withdrawals. So, what happens with the Roth IRA is your contributions are actually taxed before they go into the Roth IRA. However, when you take the money out later in life, all of those, or when you're eligible, all of those distributions are completely tax free. So if you get started early and you save consistently to a Roth IRA, you could save a couple $100,000 into a Roth IRA. But as we saw with the earlier slide, if you get a reasonable rate of return on your investments, those contributions can grow substantially. They could double or triple in value. And so somebody who has a Roth IRA, granted they've already paid taxes on the contributions, they will not pay any taxes on the distributions. So one of the factors that I would think about if I was trying to decide whether I should contribute to a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA is, when do I think my tax liability is lowest? If I think my tax liability is lower now than I will be in retirement, then I would contribute to a Roth IRA, right? If it's lower now, I want to pay the taxes now and avoid paying taxes later when my taxes are higher. And with the traditional IRA, of course, it would be just the opposite. With the traditional IRA, you would assume that you would believe that your taxes would be lower in retirement, so you would defer paying those taxes until later in life. Rules for the traditional IRA and Roth IRA are a little more flexible than with the 401k or 457. For example, you can see that you can withdraw money from either account at any age. The problem is if you take those distributions prior to age 59, then you could pay a penalty. So the general rule for these is you need to wait till age 59 and a half. Now the rules for a Roth IRA are even a little bit more complicated than that. For example, as long as the account's been open for 5 years, you can withdraw your contributions at any time without paying taxes or a penalty. You only run into problems if you start taking distributions of the growth before age 59. So before you ever think about doing that, I'd recommend that you call URS or speak with your tax advisor. And again, that's taking distributions from your Roth IRA prior to age 59 and a half. The consequences, the tax consequences or penalty consequences could be severe. Now you see that with the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA, you have some exceptions to those general rules. For example, you can take those distributions without the penalty if you're purchasing a first home or to pay for higher education. And that doesn't have to be your higher education. It can be the higher education of your children or a spouse. And anyway, you can see the other exceptions there. If you're thinking about taking a distribution based on one of these exceptions, then I'm going to recommend that you talk to your tax advisor. URS, we are not tax advisors, we're not tax experts, and so we can't give you advice on that. Recommend that you talk to your tax advisor before you to make sure that your exception applies. Yeah, we've got another poll question. Based on what you've heard so far, which one of these savings plans appeal to you? Take just a minute to answer that. All right, thank you so much. Looks like we're evenly split between the 401k and the 457 and a Roth IRA. All right, so a quarter of you like the 401k, a quarter of you like the 457, and half of you like a Roth IRA. Another consideration that just came to mind with the Roth IRA, we would strongly recommend a Roth IRA for you if you're currently in like the 10 or 15% tax bracket. That's almost a no-brainer. We're going to assume that your taxes are going to be lower now than they would be in retirement. So consider a Roth contribution. And also remember, it's possible that you can contribute to all of these. You can contribute to both a tax deferred and a Roth IRA account. You don't have to just contribute to one. All right, let's move on to the contribution limits. So with the 401k and the 457, you can make an annual contribution of $18,000 a year into each account. And once you hit age 50, you can contribute $24,000 a year into each account. So if you have both a 401k and a 457, you could contribute $36,000 a year until you hit age 50, and then $48,000 a year once you hit that age 50. Now, the rules for the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA are different. You see those contribution limits there, $5,500 a year or $6,500 a year once you hit age 50. Those are total IRA annual contribution limits. So I don't care how many IRAs you have. I don't care whether they're traditional or whether they're Roth. I don't care if they're with us or another broker or brokerage. You cannot contribute more than $5,500 a year to an IRA until you hit age 50, and then it steps up to $6,500 a year. That's a common mistake we'll see people make. They'll think, oh, I'll open up an IRA, a traditional IRA, and a Roth IRA, and I'll put 5,500 or 6,500 into each. Well, guess what? The IRS finds out about that. They send you a little note, and they make you take that money out, and you can be subject to a penalty. So don't make that mistake. So we've talked about the 4 retirement savings plans, the places where you can park your money, deposit your money. So what we're going to talk about now is how you make that money grow. All right, and these are the investments that are available through Utah Retirement Systems. Utah Retirement Systems offers a number of different mutual funds. And mutual funds are considered they're the preferable way to save for retirement for a variety of reasons. And actually, for many people, they're considered the preferable way to invest, whether it's in a retirement savings account or a taxable account. For those of you who don't know, a mutual fund is a company that exists to make money. So what they do is they take investors' money, they pool that money, they invest that for them, and the product that they produce hopefully is more money. Just like Ford produces cars and Coke produces beverages, a mutual fund company that's doing its job is making its investors money. There are currently over 8,000 mutual funds out there. We have an offering of 8 core investment options. We call the 8 individual mutual funds. And you can see those on this slide here. The way they're presented to you in this slide is we have low risk on the left, and the funds become more aggressive and riskier as you move to the right. So the income fund is the low risk fund that we offer, and the small cap fund is the highest risk fund that we offer. And of course, those in between, they become a little bit riskier as you move left to right. One thing you should remember, there is no way for you to separate risk from return. All right. There's the higher the potential the return, the higher the potential or the higher the risk. Risk means the potential for loss. If you have somebody who comes up to you and says, "Hey, if you'll give me $5,000, I'll give you $50,000 next year," and there's no risk, that person's uh, that person's lying to you. They're trying to con you out of your money. And if you just think about it with common sense, why would somebody who knows of a deal where you can invest 5,000, convert it to 50,000, why would they share that with anybody? If it was me, I'd be investing all my 5,000, all the money I had, take advantage of that deal, and I wouldn't share that with anybody. I mean, I don't think anybody is that altruistic, right? And there's a lot of examples out there, and Utah, we happen to be one of those areas where we our residents tend to be victimized, maybe more than average, by these investment schemes. So don't fall for it. There's always risk associated with return. Now, as you're trying to decide, if you look at this and you say, yeah, I like the idea of choosing my mutual funds, choosing my investments. We don't recommend that you park all your money in just one fund. We actually recommend that you create a portfolio of investments. And the following analogy can maybe help you in doing that. Think about these mutual funds as salsa ingredients. We've got tomatoes on the left, and we've got jalapenos on the right, and we've got the onions and cilantro and the other things that people like in their salsa in the middle. A good investment portfolio is like salsa. It's a mix, right? Now, everybody's mix is going to be different. There's some of us out there who like our salsa um, mild, and so our mix will reflect that risk tolerance or that preference for less aggressive investments. There will be some of us who don't mind a little risk. We like our salsa medium in hotness, and so we're going to look for investments that provide us with some risk but not too much risk. And then finally, there are those of us we like our salsa spicy. And so we're going to be looking for an investment mix that is more aggressive. Now, if this is how you want to invest and you're not sure how to design a portfolio mix that's appropriate for you, then you can meet with myself or one of my colleagues in what we call an individual retirement planning session, and we can help you with that. But to be honest with you, what I'd recommend for most of you, if not all of you, is a target date fund. A target date fund is what we call off the shelf salsa. You know, you can go to the grocery store and you can buy individual ingredients. You can go through the vegetable department and buy tomatoes and buy jalapenos and whatever else you like. Or you can go to the Mexican food aisle and they'll have all sorts of salsa, and it's all pre-mixed, and so you go up there and the labels will say, hey, this is mild, this is medium, or this is hot. And that's how a target date fund works. You can see at the top of this graph the different target date funds that we offer. We start with we've got a target date 2060 through a target date retired fund. And now URS isn't the only company that offers target date funds. The big mutual fund companies all offer them: Vanguard, Fidelity. I'm sure there are many others. Basically, they're usually the years are spread every 5 years. So you can see we've got a 2060, a 2055, a 2050. When you're trying to decide on a target date fund, what target date fund is appropriate for you, the general recommendation is that you look for a target date fund that matches that the year of the target date fund is closest to the year you plan on retiring or pulling money from that account. So, for example, if you were thinking I'm going to retire and take money out of my retirement savings plan in 2045 or a year close to that, then we'd recommend that you go with the 2045 fund. The percentages below each one of those target date funds show you the mix, okay? If you look over on the left-hand side, you'll see the 12 individual mutual funds, or you'll see 12 individual mutual funds. Those first 5, the stock funds, those are taken right from our core 8. And then the bottom or the top 2 in the bond section, the income and the bond fund, those also come from our core mutual fund offerings. The real asset funds and the international and global bond funds are only available through the target date fund. So each one of the target date funds is invested in those individual mutual funds to varying degrees. The percentages tell you how much of that target date fund or how much of that individual fund is found in the target date fund. So for example, with that target date 2060 fund, 10% is invested in the large cap stock value, 20% is in the large cap stock index fund. So we've talked about a couple of advantages to a target date fund. Of course, you've got a mix that's been designed for you based on your risk tolerance and or years to retirement. You're diversified. You've got each target date fund is invested in those 12 individual mutual funds. And then another advantage to a target date fund is that they're rebalanced at least annually. So the fund manager will keep that mix as close to those percentages as possible. So for example, if the small cap stock fund has a number of years where it performs very well, it can begin to become a larger part of your portfolio, and its percentage of that fund could become greater than the range or the mix that we're trying to maintain. And so the fund manager will rebalance the investments at least annually to keep that mix at the designed levels. This graph shows another advantage to a target date fund, and we call this a glide path. You'll note what this graph shows is how much of each fund is invested in stocks, how much is invested in real assets, and how much is invested in bonds. You'll notice that for people, the further out you have until retirement, the more of your target date fund is invested in stocks. You'll notice that the investments in real assets doesn't change a lot over time. The percentages stay about the same throughout your lifespan. And then, of course, the green shows how much is invested in bonds. So let's say somebody starts with that 2060 fund. That's when they plan on accessing the fund. So they start there. Every year, the fund manager is going to start to adjust their how much is invested in stocks versus how much is invested in bonds. You'll notice that for the first 15 to 20 years, there's not a lot of change, right? Most of the investment's going to remain in stocks. However, about 20 years after they start that investment, the fund manager is going to start to dial back the risk in that particular target date fund. Every year he's going to sell off some stock and he's going to buy more bonds, and the fund manager is going to continue to do that right through retirement. So you notice that somebody who has years to retirement will have over 20% in their target date fund invested in stocks, yet somebody who is retired will only have 20% invested in stocks. Stocks is where you see growth. You also see volatility. So that's recommended when you have more years to retirement. But when you're close to retirement, when you're more interested in where you're interested in giving up return for safety, then it's recommended that you have more of those investments in target date fund or in bonds rather than stocks. Now we've got another poll question. Take just a minute to answer this. Want to make sure that I've explained this target date fund well so you understand. All right, awesome. 100% on this. The answer is false, okay? So a target date fund does not mean that your savings account will be fully funded by that target date. Remember, a target date fund, just like a mutual fund, just like a stock, is subject to the volatility of the market. It's subject to how much you contribute. This is just another means of investing, of getting that money to grow. So whether or not your investment is fully funded will depend on how much you contribute, how much those investments perform, and how long you have until retirement. Thank you for answering that question. All right. This, just like with the pensions, we also have a calculator for the savings plans. Again, you just go to urs.org, click on the calculator link, and then click on the link that says Savings Plans Future Values Calculator. There are a lot of calculators out there that are pretty simple that will provide you with some basic information. What I like about this calculator is it asks you to enter a little bit more information than a basic calculator. For example, your life expectancy. It recognizes that your rates of return will be different um, during your working years than they'll be during your retirement years. Our defaults are a 7% rate of return during your working years and a 4% default during your retirement years. And then, of course, life expectancy is important. Somebody who has $1 million and only lives $10 would be able to spend a lot more money every year than somebody who lives 20 years and has $1 million. So we ask you for life expectancy, and I understand that's difficult to predict. But there are some life expectancy table that you can fall back on. You can look at family history. The fact that this is so uncertain explains why retirees' number one concern is that they will outlive their savings. People just don't know how long to live. It also explains why most people tend to withdraw less from their savings plans than they could. And that's because, of course, they're concerned about life expectancy, living longer. One of the other things I like about this savings plan future value calculator is when you get the results, it gives you three different numbers. The first number is the lump sum, how much you'll have in that account when you retire. The second number tells you the future value of that account in terms of how much you can withdraw every month. All right, and that's based on that's where the life expectancy kicks in. Now, the third number that you're going to see is the present value of that future monthly withdrawal. So you could actually, it helps you to understand the effects of inflation on that. So this is a good time for you to maybe think about your pension, think about your savings plans, and answer this question for us. We got another poll question. Do you think that you're on track to meet your goals? Just quickly answer that for us. All right. So initially we had some reservation about whether you felt like you were adequate, and then we saw some adjustment there. Looks like about 60% of you are comfortable that you're on track. That's awesome. Thank you for taking a minute to answer that question. All right, so here's the web page that I've been discussing from time to time, and you can see the link to the calculators there. We encourage all of you to create a login. If you haven't already logged in, please create a login. If you're having trouble doing that, call us. One of our customer service people can help you with that. When you log into your website or into your account, this is your landing page. You'll notice that it shows on that right-hand side your years of service, and then on the left-hand side, it's going to show the different retirement savings plans that we offer and your balances. If you want to make changes in that particular account, like how much you're saving, how you invest it, just access the account, make the changes there. If you decide that you want to make changes, start to contribute or make changes to how you save, this is the page where you do that. You can see that you can save a percentage or a fixed dollar amount. We recommend a percentage because, of course, your contributions go up as your salary goes up or your pay goes up. Now, we offer one of the free services that we offer is an individual retirement planning session. This allows you to sit down with myself or one of my colleagues for 1 hour. We'll go over those three sources of retirement income: pension, Social Security, and retirement savings, and we'll help you to determine whether you're on track. We'll also help you to make sure that your money is invested appropriately through URS, and we can answer questions that you might have about those sources of retirement savings. You sign up for these by going to the website, clicking on the Education tab, logging into your account, clicking on the Education tab, and then clicking on this link, individual retirement planning session. Once you do that, on the right-hand side, a whole list of locations will populate. Dates and locations will populate. Don't be discouraged if a lot of them are full. We're adding new dates every week. Just be if you want to get in, just be diligent in checking that every week and looking for new ones. Of course, it's easier to get into our offices here in Salt Lake. We're offering those sessions Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but we do offer them at different locations. It can just be a little bit harder to get into those. So that's your Tier 1 retirement benefit. I hope that's explained the pension benefit to your satisfaction. Again, remember, you can download the brochures, you can go to the website, you can look at videos, other publications, or enroll in one of our individual retirement planning sessions. Thanks for your attendance today.
Okay, thank you so much, Tracy, and thank you for your participation today in the Tier 1 Public Safety and Firefighter webinar. A couple other quick notes. We will be sending you an email today with a link to a survey. We ask you to please fill out that survey. It helps us know how effective the presentation was and possibilities of how we can improve these sessions. In addition, we will put the webinar on on our website. So if you want to go back and view that, we have recorded this session, and you are able to go back and listen to it again if you'd like. If you have any other questions that may not have been answered, we will stay online to answer those questions for a few minutes after. Also, let me just put in a quick plug for our upcoming webinars on October 17th and 19th. We will be discussing our savings plans a little more in detail, along with those investment options a little more in detail. So you can go to our website and sign up at urs.org under the Education tab and the webinars. With that being said, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.